Hello, you gorgeous individuals, it's Kav here, and today I'm going to be talking about Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. Now, anyone who has even briefly interacted with me will know that I am absolutely in love with Cassie's books, and they are my favorite books of all time. These books have helped me through some of the hardest times in my life, and Cassie is my writing inspiration, so there's a lot I owe to these books, and I'm just really thrilled that we have more of this world to delve into. Now, like all forms of entertainment, this is not perfect. No one can ever create the 100% perfect novel, and it does have some parts that may hurt a few people, so I will put some sources in the description to cover all that, because I just want to make sure everyone can have all the information and be well prepared before reading this book, and make sure that this is something that they do want to read. It is something I highly recommend, but you have to do what's best for you, and I completely understand that. But I'm just going to be sharing my own personal opinion, which is basically I loved everything in the novel. For those of you who don't know what this novel is about, Lord of Shadows is the second book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, which is a trilogy in the Shadowhunter Chronicles world. The most famous, I guess, series is The Mortal Instruments, and I am absolutely loving this trilogy. I'll link my review of the first book in the description below, although be aware that it's the first ever book review I made, so I really don't know what state it's in. I've never gone back and watched it, but if you are interested, I'll link that down below. I am absolutely loving this trilogy. I think that we have really seen Cassie's growth as a writer and how much more she has been able to do with the series. I guess that comes from her experience having written so many books now, and also having so much time with this world and being able to now delve deeper into it, and I really think that's noticeable through this latest trilogy, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. I had no problems with anything that really happened in this novel. I think that it was all planned out well and just done really well. That's all I really have to say that's non-spoilery. I'm now going to be jumping into a lot of spoilery stuff, so if you haven't read the book yet, you should go do that, definitely. But first read Lady Midnight, and then read this, and then come back and join us so that we can discuss the magnificence that is this novel. As I pointed out, we've kind of spent quite a lot of time with this world. We've seen multiple different series take place in different time periods and in different locations with this world, but I'm really glad that we're finally getting a better understanding of fairies. I think that we've gotten a well-rounded understanding of all the other downworlders. We've had some prominent warlock characters such as Magnus Bane and Katarina Loss, and now even Malcolm Fade, and we've gotten some good vampire knowledge through the character of Simon and Raphael and their journeys as vampires and the New York vampire clan, and also of werewolves through characters like Luke and Maya and Jordan Kyle. So I think that we've gotten a well-rounded understanding of all the other downworlders, but I feel that fairies have been something that we've kind of been more lacking in the same kind of understanding, but we're really getting that through this series, and I'm really thrilled that we're finally getting that understanding of fairies. In The Mortal Instruments and in Lady Midnight, I feel like we really only got a good understanding of the Seelie Queen and the Seelie Court and what that was like, but now in this book we really got a good understanding of the Unseelie King and the Unseelie Court, which I absolutely loved discovering. I loved the part where Mark, Christina, Julian, and Emma all went to Fairy and had to exist in the Unseelie realm of fairy, I guess, and they had to understand what it was like to be without their powers. And I think that we as readers got a good understanding of how much Shadowhunters really do depend on their angelic powers to do what they need to do to fight and to really be who they are, because when restricted from that, they really couldn't be themselves to their full capacity. I also think that meeting the Unseelie King, or the Lord of Shadows, was extremely interesting because we got to see just how ruthless he really is, and we kind of got a basic understanding of how he became that way. Not as much as I would have wanted. I hope that's something we go more into in the third book or in another series or something, but I think that we did get a basic understanding of how he's come to be so ruthless, and I think Kieran's character also shows the most well-known, I guess, of the Unseelie court, and we got to see the different brothers, Eric, Dayon, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and Kieran, and we got to see the differences in their personality, and we got to see how Eric, the most ruthless of them all, is the Unseelie King's favorite. So I really think that we got a wider understanding of what it's like to be in fairy or to be a fairy, and I really enjoyed that. And I also enjoyed the interactions with Neen, who is Mark and Helen's aunt, and also seeing Julian's interactions with the Seelie Queen. I think that making that deal with the Seelie Queen and just having to have so many interactions with fairies is really interesting, because they are really complex, and as we know, they can't lie or anything, so there's a lot to them that's really interesting to discover. Also, as I pointed out, Kieran is probably the most well-known of the fairies from the Unseelie court, and I really loved Kieran's character in this book. I loved his journey throughout the book. I loved him having to be taken out of fairy and having to be in the Shadowhunter world or in the mundane world and have to discover that, because I think that it was really interesting to see that and see his interactions with the Shadowhunters, and I just really loved being able to delve deeper into his character, and I really adored the relationship between him and Christina. I loved that he pledged his loyalty to Christina just to piss off Mark, but it actually started an amazing platonic relationship between the two towards the end of the novel. I was just absolutely loving that. When Diego at the very end said he had to take Kieran to the Scholomance, but Kieran was like, no, you hurt Lady Christina. I just love the way he defended Christina, and I think that their relationship is something that was explored so much in this book, because it really only began in this book. It never existed in Lady Midnight. Kieran kind of just hated Christina because Mark was into her, but in this one we got the ballroom dancing scene, and we got the scene where they both had to see the Unseelie King together. So there was just so much there that was there to explore, and I think that Cassie did a really good job of exploring the relationship between the two, and then also the dynamic between the two of them and Mark, and how that I thought was going to be a lot more awkward than it was, because I think, as I said, throughout the novel, the relationships that were delved deeper into and the platonic bonds that were created really made it more of a Jem, Tessa, Will kind of love triangle than anything else. I was just a huge fan of seeing all of that, and I think that they're probably the main focus love triangle, although it's more of a hexagon if you throw in Emma, Jules, and Diego if you're being really specific, but I just love the focus on those three characters, because I think that they're probably three of the most interesting or different characters. Speaking of Christina, I really love her character. I think she's one of my favorites of the novel, although I have a hard time picking a favorite in this novel, because I think all the characters have been done so well and explored so well. But I really do enjoy Christina's character, and I think that this novel gave us a better understanding of her, and I really love the relationship between Christina and Emma. I love that now that Emma has kind of lost Jules, she does have Christina with her. She's not totally alone. I really love how Christina has kind of been adopted into the Blackthorn family the same way Emma was, but she was adopted into the Blackthorn family because of Jules, but Christina has kind of been adopted into it through Emma and Mark, and I just love how the dynamic between them makes it seem like she's genuinely part of the family, not an outsider. Mentioning Emma and Jules, I was so relieved when Emma finally told Jules about what Jem had told her about the Parabatai curse, because I was just waiting for her to say it. Like, I can't believe she didn't tell him earlier. The relationship between her and Mark was honestly just really funny. I love that they had a good friendship, but I just loved how their relationship was fake, and it was just really entertaining, I guess. You know, my heart really does lie with Emma and Julian. I think that they have a great love for each other, and I think that Julian has been kind of an ass to Emma in the past as a defense mechanism, but I still do, despite all of that, think that they would be really good together if they were able to be free and be able to be in a relationship as they want to. Actually, talking about that, I think it was Gabby from Gabriella Pop who first mentioned this theory to me, but we share a theory that Emma and Christina will become Parabatai and Emma and Julian won't, and I stand by that theory even through the ending of what happened at Lord of Shadows. We were talking about this before the book came out. Despite what happened at the end of Lord of Shadows with Emma going into exile to break the Parabatai bond, I still do foresee a Parabatai bond between the two of them. I think that that might be something that we discover more of through the series, because I think that we're getting a better understanding of what it means to be a Parabatai and kind of the history behind it than we have in any of the other books. We have seen some great bonds. I really think that Jem and Will are such a deep Parabatai bond that most Parabatai never actually get to experience, but I still think that this book has given us a better understanding of more of the history and the meaning of the relationship. So I do foresee some changes happening in how it works, maybe. I'm not really sure whether that's a possibility in this system, but I still assume that, or I still theorize that it's a possibility, and I really hope that we do get to see a Parabatai bond between Emma and Christina, because I would love to see two girls as Parabatai, because we haven't actually seen that yet. So I'd love to see them fighting together and making each other stronger, because I think that would just be great and just be badass and really feminist, and I would just really enjoy that. So I really hope that does happen in the future. At the moment, I really think that Emma and Jules' relationship was much better than it was in Lady Midnight, I guess, to a sense, because halfway through, or a little more than halfway through this novel, they started finally being honest with each other. And the first half of the novel, when they weren't being honest, it was just really bothering me, because I was just like, I really want them to be able to talk to each other, but it was just lacking, and they just couldn't get to that point, and it was really frustrating me. So when they were finally honest with each other in the cottage, it just thrilled me. And when Magnus gave Jules the advice to go to Robert, and how Robert reacted was just absolutely brilliant. I was so proud of his character for coming so far, because in the Mortal Instruments, Robert, I hated him. I couldn't stand him. He was an ass, but he's really grown, and his leniency and his willingness to hear Emma and Julian out was brilliant. I was just really glad that they were finally able to be more mature about it than the childish behavior they had throughout Lady Midnight and through the first half of this book. Speaking of delving deeper into things, I was so thrilled that we got to see more of the younger Blackthorns. I adore the Blackthorn family. That's why I was talking about how hard it is for me to pick a favorite in this book, because I adore the entire family. I think that they are a really close family, and I love that, and it's really sad the circumstances that led to this point, but they are an incredibly close family, and I really love that. I was so glad that we got to see more of the younger Blackthorns, specifically Livy, Ty, and Drew. Of course, we can't really go into Tavi's point of view yet, but I was so thrilled when baby Max and baby Raphael came into this novel, and Tavi finally had friends to play with. It just made me so happy that he was finally able to play with people close to his own age, instead of having to be around all the adults talking about blood and death all the time. I also really love the parts we got with Drew. I think that her character has a lot to offer, because she does have a different body type, and she faces a lot of backlash for that. So I really enjoyed reading that and being able to discover that throughout the novel, because it was really heartbreaking to see the comments people were making about a 13-year-old, and some of them were just horrible, and it was really sad to see that, but it was also really important, I think, to see that and see how it's important not to do that to people, I guess, like fictional real life metaphor type thing. And I just loved going more into her point of view. I loved when Jamie came in and seeing the dynamics between Drew and Jamie in a completely platonic way. I still loved being able to go more into that, because we really didn't get anything from Drew's character in Lady Midnight besides the fact that she loves horror, but we really got more of that in this novel, and I was really excited. And the part where she kind of went into that fairy place and met Ash, which actually Gabby who I mentioned before, theorizes is the Seelie Queen and Sebastian's son, which I think would be horrific, and I hope not, but I think it's a really good theory, and I would love to see that happen, I guess. I loved seeing that part of Drew, even though that part was really weird. I just kind of love seeing Drew get a little mini adventure by herself. I also love seeing so much of Livy and Ty. I was absolutely heartbroken when Livy died at the end. She, Helen, and Ty have to be my favorite Blackthorns. So I was absolutely heartbroken when she died at the very end. I was like, excuse you, why did you have to kill this 15-year-old who's actually the same age as me? But I love her character so much, or loved, I guess, now that she's dead. I absolutely adore Ty's character. I'm really glad we got an autistic character. I know there are mixed opinions on the rep, but I think that it was done pretty well in this book from my point of view, but I am not an autistic person, so it's not my place to make that judgment. But I really like that that is a non-neurotypical character in the book, and I love the relationship between him and Livy and their twin siblingness. I think that it's adorable, and I'm so heartbroken for Ty now because to lose half of him like that is horrible. And I love the triangle between Kit, Ty, and Livy. I think that Kit and Ty are totally in love, and they're just very in denial, and it's pissing me off. Like, just kiss and be happy. I loved seeing the platonic relationship between the three and getting more into Kit this time too, and seeing Kit at the Shadow Market and doing what he does there was really interesting, and getting to see more of his point of view after losing his father and being told he's a Herondale. So seeing that was really interesting, and I really hope that Kit and Ty become canon in Queen of Air and Darkness. And I honestly just loved the dynamic between the three, because I think that Livy and Ty really helped pull Kit out of his hole of being like, what the hell is going on? And Kit also really helped Ty, I think, be more comfortable in who he is, because Kit was really accepting of it. And I love the part where Kit and Julian were talking, and Kit said to Julian, he's not weird, just autistic. I think that kind of normalized what Ty is going through, and Ty being autistic, I think that normalized that. And I just love the relationship between Livy and Ty and how much they care about each other. And when they were at the Shadow Market and Magnus made his grand entrance, I was so thrilled. I actually squealed out loud. There were points at this book where I actually like laughed out loud and squealed out loud and made verbal noises, because I am so involved in this world. But mentioning Magnus, I was absolutely ecstatic when characters from the old series were brought in. I always love seeing that happen when characters from different series have been brought in before, but I am especially loving that in this trilogy, because they're being brought in more and more and referenced even more and more. And Magnus's entrance, I was so thrilled because it was so his character. I love that Magnus is a character we get to see in all of the series. I think he's probably the only character we see in all of the series. Well, we do see Jem in all of the series, but not as much, but we get to see Magnus prominently in all of the series, and I absolutely adore his character. I don't know anyone who doesn't. I love them being in the London Institute and seeing all the references made to the Infernal Devices, and also some to The Last Hours, which is a spin-off series of the Infernal Devices that will start in 2018, I believe. And I really loved Jessamine as a ghost being there. I adore Jessamine as a ghost, not as much in real life because she was also kind of an ass, but I adore Jessamine as a ghost. I am 95% sure she's a lesbian, but it's not canon. But I'm going with it. It's my theory. Everyone I've ever met agrees with it, so I'm rolling with it. I absolutely adore Jessamine's character as a ghost. She was so sassy and so funny, and I loved her back and forth with Kit and everything, and I just really love her character. And I loved when she like visited Tavi, I guess, and Tavi was laughing and everyone was like, what the hell? But it was just incredible, and I think that that was one of the most entertaining portions of the book that wasn't as heavy set in plot lines or in heart-wrenching deaths, because Cassie is incredible at those, but these were just kind of really entertaining portions of the book. And I also loved Alec being in this book. I think that Alec's character has also grown a lot throughout his time. He was much more of an ass at the beginning of the Mortal Instruments, but his character grew tremendously throughout the series, and I know there were some issues with him even towards the later half of the Mortal Instruments, but now I think in this series he really is an adult and being adult-like. And even Clary and Jace's characters, I've never been a huge fan of either of them, but I was still happy with how they were. I again think that they're growing up to be quite mature adults, and I'm really glad with the direction they're going in. Except, whoa, can we talk about Clary being like, oh wait, I'm gonna die? Like, no. That part, I was just like, hi, thanks for dropping this bomb at the very beginning of the book before I've even gotten anywhere. I'm really interested to see where this direction heads, but we never really got to explore it anymore in this book. It was kind of just like a bomb dropped on us and then it was gone. She would never appeared for the rest of the book. Like, are she and Jace still in Fairy? And I'd really like to know what Clary and Jace are doing in Fairy. Are they looking for Ash? Is that what they're up to? Like, what exactly is it that they're doing while they're there? I really want to see that and hear more of that, because we really got just a very basic level understanding of that. And of course, I have to talk about Diana's character, because we got some great insight onto her, and I am so glad that Cassie decided to include a trans character. I, as a gender fluid person, was pleased with how it was done, but again, I'm just one person, so you don't have to quote me on that, but I thought that the representation was done well, and I really loved the part where Diana was explaining her experiences as a trans person. I did assume or guess, I guess, that she was the trans character, and I'm so glad that we got to see her talking about that and see her being accepted by Gwyn. I think that Diana and Gwyn are an amazing relationship, and I'm glad we got to see the beginnings of them in this novel, and I hope we get to delve deeper into them, because I think that that's just something Diana obviously deserves, because she's definitely been going through a lot, and you can see that she genuinely cares about the Blackthorn kids, but there are things prohibiting her from getting what she really wants to get because of the fact that she isn't like everyone else. She's trans, and I'm just so glad, and I'm glad that the importance of labels was also brought in that discussion, and I was so glad that Katerina was the person who helped Diana, because I love Katerina's character. I'd really love to see her make an appearance more often, but I love her character so much, so I'm really thrilled that she's the one who helped Diana, and I am just so pleased with how Diana's character has been done and that, and I really hope that Diana can be open as open as she wants in the future, so that she doesn't have to feel like this. I really hope that's something that is improved within the Shadowhunter system throughout the rest of this series and as we delve deeper into the Shadowhunter world. Mentioning Gwyn, of course we have to talk about the Wild Hunt and the riders and everything that was going on with that. As I said, we learned a lot about Fairy in this, and we got to see some good sides and we got to see a lot of the downsides of Fairy. I love that Mark got to ride with the Wild Hunt one more time, but then we also got to see the 7 riders of the Unseelie King, and when Emma killed one of them, you know, it's never been done before because they're ancient beings, and I really think it has to do with Cortana, and I'd really love to get more information about Cortana, because we hear about how powerful it is, especially because it's Wayland Smith made, I believe, but I would love to understand more of Cortana and why Cortana could kill that fairy rider when most weapons can't, even though I understand that it is a special weapon. I'd love to understand more about that. And I really loved the battles with the fairies. I loved seeing that action, because I think that Cassie's books always have a good balance of romance and heartbreak and humor and action, and I think that was done incredibly well in this novel as well, maybe even the best it's ever been done in all of her novels, because as I said, I think this trilogy is being written so well through her experience as a writer and her time spent in this world. So I really think that the action scenes in this novel were done really well, especially the battles with the riders. Of course, I'm gonna have to talk talk about Malcolm coming back to life and then dying again, I was so shocked when that happened. That was something I didn't see coming at all from a mile away, when he was just like, oh hi, I'm still alive. I was, like I said, absolutely shocked, and I think that was probably, other than the Clary thing, one of the first big shocking things that happened just pertaining to this series itself. And then, like a chapter or so later, he died yet again, and I was really saddened by Arthur's death. I know that his character hasn't contributed a lot to this novel, but of course he's had a very hard life, you know, and he's had to deal with mental illnesses, which I think in this novel we learned was agoraphobia, but I would have loved to hear more about him, and I was really saddened when he died because it wasn't what I actually expected. I did think there was something weird when Arthur didn't go with them, but that wasn't exactly what I assumed would happen. And then when Annabelle came back to life and killed Malcolm, that was definitely a shocker. I don't think I was actually expecting Annabelle to be resurrected, but she was, and then I was expecting her to be the antagonist, but then she wasn't exactly that either. She was somewhere in between. I guess she was just in this weird place, which, you know, makes sense because Shadowhunters betrayed her a long time ago, and now she's back alive with this incredibly powerful book, which is something I also would like to learn more about and get a better understanding of, because we can definitely see that it has a lot of power through the scene that happened in the church with that horrible demon. And I definitely think that Annabelle's character is really complex, and I thought she would be a villain, but then when she came back, and when it was Ty that brought her back, I was really happy that he finally got to be able to contribute something that big, you know, the same way Tavi got his contribution in the first book, Ty got that in the second book, and I was really pleased with that. I hope that maybe Drew or something gets that in the third book. And then she came back, and then at that point I thought it was going to be all great and she would finally be able to get back to her Blackthorn family, because I thought that was something she did deserve, because her biggest mistake was falling in love with the wrong person, and like, you can't control who you fall in love with. At least that's what I believe. I really hoped that she would get that, but then when she was on the stand and she was treated like crap, and then she killed Robert, that Alec having to see his dad dying was just like I said, I hated Robert's character. He was a complete ass, but he had grown so much, he had made so much growth. The way he was like, I trust Magnus so fully. He had come so far from how he was in The Mortal Instruments, and I was so happy with that. And then they killed him, and then they killed Livy right after, and I was just so devastated. The last few pages of the book were an absolute whirlwind of chaos, and so much went on in them, and I was just absolutely heartbroken. Talking about Annabelle being treated like crap, I of course have to go into the cohort and go into Zara, who, if we really want to look at an antagonist for this series, I think we're gonna have to talk about Zara, because oh my. I really liked what Cassie did with the registry being like a metaphor, I guess, for kind of what's happening in the real world and the treatment of actual people in the real world. And of course, I absolutely hated the cohort with everything in me, because they were honestly just a bunch of prejudiced assholes who weren't willing to evolve and willing to be progressive. I just hated them. Like, that's all I felt for them. Hate. There was no complex emotion towards what I had for them. It was really just pure hate, because they were so prejudiced and couldn't get over that, and they caused horrible things. And not to mention, Zara's just a liar. For her to just be lying and to take credit for what people had done so wrongly was absolutely baffling. And Annabelle was like treated like crap. Things were thrown at her because she told the truth, because she took away their little princess being perfect, who she was never perfect. Yeah, the Dearborn family needs to like, yeah. On a happier note of that ending, I was so thrilled when Helen came back, because like I said, she's one of my 3 favorites of the Blackthorn siblings. So when she came back, I was thrilled. She and Aline are so adorable. I really hope there's more of them in the third book, because I love them being a couple, and I loved seeing Helen in Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, so I hope we get to see more of her in this book. And when Aline was sassing Zara, and just everyone sassing Zara was honestly really hilarious. This book was a great balance of everything Cassie mostly always manages to balance, you know, romance, heartbreak, humor, action, everything in between all of those. There was so much content to it, so I apologize if this review was kind of all over the place. I don't really know if I got into every single aspect of the novel that I wanted to get into, but I think I covered all the major topics that were really the biggest parts that I, you know, enjoyed or hated or just had to be able to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I would love to see your guys' theories. Who do you think the Queen of Air and Darkness is? Because I believe that it's the Seelie Queen 100%, and I'd be really happy if it is, because then we'd get the Unseelie King and the Seelie Queen, so we get kind of a full rounded of fairy. And so I would love to hear your guys' theories, so put those in the comments below because I want to hear what you all are thinking. I will also link Gabby in the description below because I mentioned her like 5 times in this video. We've been talking about Lord of Shadows a lot. If you'd like to follow me on any of my other social media, I will have all of those linked in the description below as usual, and my Goodreads will also be there in the description below. I hope you're having a lovely day or night wherever you are. Please remember you're beautiful and you deserve the world, and I will see you next Sunday with a brand new video. Goodbye!